Welcome to Beyond Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Petrellis, and we are in our last week of Assistant Coaches Month, week 5. And as I've said before, and I'll say it again, this is my absolute favorite month of the year. Assistant coaches, they are the backbone of any good coaching staff. It's a lot of work that you put in. You don't necessarily get a lot of love for it, but you develop as a coach and you put yourself in a situation to someday maybe be able to take over your own program, whether it's at the high school level or even beyond that. And I saved this guest for last. This is a very, very, I would say interesting guest, but someone who means a lot to me. I had the honor of coaching this kid when I first started at Arlington Catholic. He was a sophomore and, 3-year starter, just a very, very good football player, very smart kid, very polite, very humble, and just developed into one heck of a football player. Later went on to play at Merrimack. When I came back and coached with me, and then when I got the head coaching job, someone who I hired on my staff, and just I knew brought so much value. And we'll talk a lot about our relationship today, and obviously the type of coach we have here. But current offensive coordinator at Arlington High School, and like I said, someone who I've had the pleasure of coaching and coaching with, and coaching them, and it's been awesome. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, from Arlington High School, Nick Desjardins.
Thank you, my good friend. I feel like as if it's always humbling when you hear, just from other people things that you've done, and I think the benefit of this and stuff like this in general is a new trend in pop culture is, giving people their roses while they're still here with us, while they're still doing what they're doing. So I think it's a great initiative. I think it's a great thing in general, and very appreciative. Sometimes I'm not the greatest receptionist of it, but I definitely do appreciate it. So it means a lot coming from you.
Yeah. This is why I love this guy. Just listen to him talk, man. So, I gave you a little street cred here in your introduction, but I just want to jump in and dive into that a little bit further because I love to do that for coaches that come here that, kind of walk the walk and talk the talk. And sometimes their players need to hear that a little bit, just to understand. So, back in our days in Arlington Catholic, your senior year, you were senior league, league all-star. You were the MVP of the league that year in 2007. And as a middle linebacker, you were an offensive lineman and a middle linebacker. So you won a league MVP as a middle linebacker, which, you football people that are listening out there, you have a high school linebacker that is dominant, especially in the middle of the field. It makes your defense so dynamic. And Nick was exactly that for us. Playing the high school all-star game at the Shriners, Shriners all-star game, which is, the top high school players in the state. And then went on and played collegiately at Merrimack, played as a defensive end and outside linebacker. And, Merrimack is making that Division I push. Currently, they have a great coaching staff, had a great season. Former Cougar coach Ainsley Rosenbaum, now the wide receiver coach over there. And Nick, while there, was not only one all conference, but one all academic conference. Nick is an extremely smart guy, and he's a physician assistant. So he works at the VA in Boston in orthopedics. And the guy has a heck of a schedule, intelligent human being. And I wanted to give you your street cred, man, because I think you deserve that.
Yeah. Again, it's kind of weird hearing it, but again, yeah, definitely appreciate it. I think the interesting thing that people always ask, especially because of that '07 campaign, just because I didn't have, a lot of notoriety going into senior year. I wasn't this, big time kid coming back for a senior run, wasn't an all-star as a junior or sophomore. But yeah, it was a great run. It was, hey, I couldn't do it without the teammates and the guys, the boys riding with me week in and week out. But then the interesting part was, just having the ability to play the game that you love at a high level and have fun doing it. So it was a lot of work in the off season. I know we'll touch on some of these things going on further into this, but it was a great ride into college. Try to do a little bit afterwards, but the body starts to fail you over time. So fortunately, I was not on the TB12 diet yet, so I wasn't able to prolong myself. But it was a good run. It was a good run.
Yeah, I mean, if you see Nick in person now, he is a monster of a man. He is ripped out of his mind on top of it. So he is just kind of like the complete dude. So jumping into that a little bit, I mean, the one really impressive stat that I read out that I just kind of want to maybe have you talk about a little bit is being all academic conference. Like it's one thing performing on the field and being able to put yourself at a higher level in that sense, but also balancing the collegiate academic schedule that goes along with it. And as I said, you work at the VA. I mean, your job is intense and nonstop. balancing that. I mean, that, just for the young kids that do listen out here, man, I mean, talk about what that means to you, that specific accolade.
Yeah, no, that was one where it was my head coach at the time, John Perry. Is like, yeah, like, do you not know, like, your academic conference? And I'm like, oh wow, that's, it's great. It's like, if anything, it's good when you're recognized, as a true, all conference player amongst the coaching staff, amongst your peers, and the greater body of writers and journalists. But then from the academic standpoint, that's a whole different ballgame. And I think there's two elements that I can really attribute to. The first one being, Arlington Catholic did do a good job of preparing me for life after high school. So the time management, I remember my guidance counselor, I think it was going into my junior year, was saying, you need to get yourself ready for college, and, writing the papers, and then, really building the time management discipline, skill sets that really can go a long way for life. But I remember I was taking like AP psychology, which I absolutely hated because it was in the middle of the football season. And I'm like, there's no way I can deal with this. And Mr. Nate Naughton, who's still with AC now, he sat me down one day after school, having me late for practice, of course, and was like, I don't know if you cut out for this. And it was those words that kind of lit the fire underneath me to say, okay. And he literally used the lines of the school, which I still use today, the slogan of accept the challenge. And once that happened, the switch just clicked, and it's just like, all right, if practice is that important to you as the games and everything else in terms of the preparation, have that same mentality when it comes to your work here. And from there, you'll be successful. I kid you not, things just started to turn for the better. And not only am I doing well, but then I end up taking the AP test that spring, passing, which allowed me to get extra credit going into college. In college, initially, same thing, kind of, getting my footing of balancing football schedule, academic schedule. But then I literally went back to that conversation in my head, just rewinding the clip of accept the challenge. Like, this is what you have to do. This is how you need to navigate your schedule. And then once I start to hit the repeat button of, okay, I get how the practice schedule is. I get how my academics are. Let me just get things locked, loaded, and hit the ground running. And from there, it's been, good to go ever since. Now, there's been ups and downs of, you just have a tight schedule, but that's the challenge. That's the obstacle that, you don't want to shy away from it. You just take it, the bulls by the horns, and you hit it headstrong. And from there, anything's possible. So I'm grateful for that time frame of AC preparing me, because then when it came down to the execution part of things in college, it almost became a no-brainer.
Yeah, and I agree with you with the AC piece, because when you hear that and you listen to that, I struggle there. My GPA was maybe like mid twos, and I might be being a little generous there, but it's, when I went to college was a lot easier. And I think that understanding of like a difficult schedule and balancing, sports and balance in school and the challenge of school, that school was prepared a lot of people. I mean, the school sent people to Harvard when I was there. 4 kids in my class went to Harvard. So, we're talking a tough academic schedule at a place like that as well. So interesting that you're able to balance it in so many different ways as a player, so on and so forth. And this is a guy who used to show up at practice like in his scrubs, like running on the field. I mean, driving from Boston, always having a funny traffic story or how he got there and how long, but always came and hustled. Like, you knew that he left from work the quickest he could to get there, because he's literally wearing what he wore to work. And scrubs are bright blue. Running, you're running into a green grass, like you stand out, but it's just really interesting of how, that's what I saw in you. That's what I kind of saw in you as a player, kind of putting that work in, but early on when you came back as a coach. And that kind of leads me to just, I have a lot of young coaches that listen to this, a lot of assistants, and I get really good feedback, DMs, and even texts for some that I personally know. Talk about, just for a young coach that maybe decides to go their coaching job of starting back at their old high school. What was that experience like for you, working with some coaches that coached you, but also maybe just seeing maybe how the high school game has changed a little bit? Because at that point you graduated 08, you came back in 15. So that's 7 years of being removed from the game a little bit, not maybe not mentally, but just removed from the game, and an athlete has changed and the game has changed a little bit. I mean, for you, how was it kind of absorbing all that, coming back to the spot that really made you, had you fall in love with the game of football?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. It's a loaded question. So I'd have to, in my medical expertise, dissect it layer by layer. But I would say it's an easier transition when you're going back to an alma mater, mainly because you understand the culture, given that the staff is still intact. You understand the tradition, so then you understand what exactly they want to do, how they want to do it, and the vision and the mission statement behind the program. And for the most part, most of the scheme carries a lot of relativity as well. I think the difference now is depending on how far you're removed from when you last played, but then when you were last, seen and working with a lot of the kids in that building, there becomes that generational gap. So I think the way I like to look at it is, if we look back just and I'm a big junkie on sociology and the history of things and getting back to the root of a lot of the sport of football. So I truly am a nerd when it comes to, the game. But I think the main thing here is that when the coaches that we had growing up, or the coaches before us, we're talking back in the 80s and 90s, they grew up in a different era of, the baby boomers and Generation X. And it was a different mentality also when it came to programs and how you practice. And we're talking, 2-3
Going
hour
at it
practices.
nonstop, dude. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and the style of athlete was also different because at that point, a lot of people were just bigger, they're bulkier, more husky, and it was more smash mouth, eye formation. We're going to run the ball down your throat, But as you transitioned, especially during the times that we've played, then people cared more about how they looked on the field. And, guys were a bit faster. You had guys playing tweener positions where, guys weren't always playing in the same one spot. But then I think once, I graduated, then there was another major shift. And the first thing I look at was social media, because that galvanized things. And you can look at it a couple of different ways. But I think giving people access with technology to things that we never had then changed how the game is looked at. But it made it easier from one standpoint, because now you can go in the huddle and you can see films and clips within 2 hours, 30 minutes at times,
Yeah.
because that's crazy. I remember back when I was playing, and even when I first got to college, we just got huddle. And that was a big thing because back at AC, we still had DVDs, every now and again, a VHS tape. And I would have to ask Coach Clay, was like, hey, can I borrow the DVD today so I can watch some film? And it used to be so much more difficult to have access to that. But I bring it all full circle to say that now, with the society of today's generation of kids, their attention span isn't always consistent. So
Right, because
now,
everything is quick. I mean, TikTok, quick. Everything's just super quick,
exactly. And football's not a quick game. It's not something that you can just pick it up and be good to go. But it's so critical that you have all the core elements, because you only have one shot at a first impression. You have one shot to score on that first drive of the game to set your momentum. But more importantly is, especially it's more important in college football, but if you lose that league game, you now may be out of contention to win the league, or that may greatly affect, your seeding in the playoffs. And thankfully the playoff structures are different. But I say all this to say that you have to treat the kids in today's day and age very different than it was back when you or I played, or those from before even our time. But I also come back to say that you really want to make sure you know your stuff, because you have to explain it to this kid in 30 seconds or less.
Yeah.
And if you can do that and do it at a high level, then it allows you to do one thing that I think is very resourceful when you can do it, which is coach on the fly, because now you can become more succinct with your practice times. Your meeting times are very short, but you really got to be prepared. You really got to make sure you know your stuff. And then as long as you can answer the two most important questions, and I'll probably harp on this at least 5 times tonight, is why something's important and how you go about executing that importance to the highest level. If you can do that and explain that, you'll have a kid no matter what, and you'll have them playing at the highest level possible.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I think there's always the common like misconceptuality, as you could call it, I guess, is that, oh, like speed does win in football, and it does. But why do teams play faster than other teams? Because every team has fast players, right? It's how they're coached and how quickly you can get them to access information and know information and be able to get them to play faster. Because if kids know where they're supposed to be and understand where they're supposed to be, then they put themselves in a position to get there quicker. They might be the slower of the two people, but if you can coach that game and get them to do those things a little bit quicker and to make them understand spacing, understand breaking off a route early, and all that stuff that goes along with the game of football, the most educated and well coached teams. I mean, our times at AC, we might talk about this, but the team that won the Super Bowl versus the teams that before that, the skill level was with the teams before that, maybe being a little bit differently coached, or at that point having different coaches on staff, not given anything less than the people that were on there, but it was just like a little bit of more X's and O's. Like defensive backs I worked with that much harder, receivers I worked with that much harder, because it was more responsibility put on my plate. So a lot of it comes back to just, again, the knowledge of the game and being able to give kids that access as quick as you can in 30 seconds or less, or else you're never going to get them on it. You're never going to get them to truly understand and be consistent with it.
Yeah, no, and I think the one thing I like doing a lot is, and I'm not going to sugarcoat. Like, it's not like I just came up with a lot of these different things. I've, like I said before, I'm a student of the game, and I've been picking up things from different coaches. But I think having catchphrases or little things that you can say, hey, this is what we do. This is how we want to coach it. Like I always tell running backs, hey, we got the three B's. And this is not the big baller brand of the Ball family, but more so in the standpoint of, we're going to bang it inside, we're going to bend it back, to our cutback lane, or we're going to bounce it. We only run the ball one of three ways, and we do it high and tight. So just giving them those reminders, and then same thing for quarterbacks. I'm like, hey, before you even figure out what we're going to do for our cadence, and just make sure where are the safeties, and is the middle field open or close, and from there, where's the corner leverage? If you're thinking it's open, is it 2 versus 4? If it's closed, is it 1 versus 3? And do we have a conflict guy in the alley? If you can answer those things in 10 seconds, ideally probably 15, then now we know we have a very smart quarterback that can not only manage the game, but he can get us into the best play to have us be the most successful. So those are little things that I think really are valuable, but that's a concept that's going to take some time to develop before you're just going to tell a kid, hey, safeties, open or close, corner, what's the leverage, conflict, yes or no. So as you get good with the details and explaining the importance of them, how and why, then the possibilities are truly endless. They're truly endless.
Yeah. And I think, that's what makes the game of football just like so special. And even listening to this guy talk, I mean, just hearing, the detail and the understanding and the numbers, I mean, that's like something you brought to the table a lot. I felt like as a coach, when you joined the staff in 2015, I felt like, for the few years before that, we really started losing some pretty good coaches, and we weren't necessarily replacing, we were somewhat taking on more. And when you came on board, there was almost just like instant. And I've seen coaches come on board year one and really just learning. And in most cases, that's what it is, because it's not that experience of understanding the game. When you came on board, I felt like instantly we had guys, someone could work with the linebacker, someone that could work with the D line, especially in the 3-4 scheme that I was running as coordinator at that point. It was very easy to have you on board to be able to understand that's kind of the system you somewhat were running back in 07, 08, obviously with its tweaks, but you instantly brought something really great. And that, that's what really helped that staff, truthfully, when you came back on board. We really were missing that guy. And I feel like we got that guy and a half when you came on board. Like we got a coach, but we got a coach that could do more. And that's kind of talking about your accepting the challenge and saying that's how you kind of lived your life and done that. It's what you did on top of being, at that school, still going at that point, still going to school because you weren't working yet, but you were taking on an insane program on top of it while trying to balance everything in life. So, that's who you are, man. And that's what I think, is why we connected so well. Like when you came back on board, I remember you handed me your Merrimack defensive playbook, and I like went through that thing that night, like, and just seeing the 3-4-4-3 scheme and different things like that. Not to jump in and nerd out here completely, but it was definitely something that that I felt right away. I'm like, all right, I really have, because I had some good D line coaches and linebacker coaches, but they all kind of left at once. So it was really trying to reload there. And I felt like I really got a 2-for-1 Dale. So that was fun. But I know for you, when we did our little pre-phone, you said you wanted to throw some stuff at me about your playing days, maybe a little bit with the idea of coaching behind it, the thought process and so on. So I'll give you a chance to fire one at me here. I feel like I'm in a
Oh,
good spot. I'm comfortable. We're enjoying it. This
hey,
might be the best time I give the best answer.
no worries, no worries. I figure this is a great opportunity where, we've got a good rapport and a rarity in the sense that you see me as a player. Then from there, you see me as, someone who just came on, just getting into the world of coaching. But then even as you grew in your tenure to becoming, the head guy, I think there's some questions that people want to know from behind the scenes. And I think one of the elements that I look at,
Nervous.
especially, there's no need to be. There's no need to be. I think some of these are just some real things that people want to know. And I'm not talking like locker room stuff or anything like that, but this is really like in the coaching room. So this is where decisions are getting made, and I go to the either chalk talk or the film study talk. And the big one that I look at first and foremost, because this is from a selfish standpoint, I look at the 2006, 2007, 2008 era, the beginning of what was, the AC dynasty, which for those who didn't know, this is a run for about 5 years of winning the CCL, the Catholic Central League large, but then also having a culmination in the middle of that time frame with a Super Bowl title that yours truly, Coach Anthony Petrels, was the defensive coordinator of. So again, I'm going to give his flowers here on the show, as well as he, we have this 1-to-1, but I go back to that time frame when I was playing. And I think one of the elements that I looked at, because I was always lobbying to play defense from the day I was able to play varsity as a sophomore. And I got shot down my first year as a sophomore. Granted, I was probably like 180 pounds soaking wet. And, we're playing teams the likes of CM at the time, which just like their powerhouse now, they were, still a juggernaut back then.
Fourth in the state that year. Fourth in the state.
Yeah. And I remember, one of the recruits was, one of the guys had a full ride of BC, like 6'3", 295, but can move. And, I'm just having my work cut out for me that day. But I say this all to say is that, I felt as if I should have been playing defense my sophomore year. My junior year, I felt as if I should have been playing defense, and I got a shot. But when you are a young coach, now this is your, essentially your first year in, what was that room like? What's that decision-making process like, especially when you want to lobby for guys, but at the same time, you want to put the best product on the field?
It's interesting. I think what you see now in high school sports, at least what I've been covering in the fall and winter, is that you do see a lot of younger guys taking on a lot more roles, playing varsity, freshmen, sophomores, who are sometimes the best players on the field or on the court or on the ice or whatever sport we're covering. But I think that's a different mentality today, because young kids go into any professional league and like they're dominant, and I think that when it came to your time period of playing, you were a young kid playing the offensive line. And I think the coaching staff felt, there was some depth in the D, right? And that for you, learning the offensive line was just more important that year. That was a development year for you to get, because they're looking at you as a 3-year investment. I mean, I wasn't really in the decision making at that point. I was really just a lonely defensive back coach, but I'm looking at it like that. Like I, saw your 3-year starter on the offensive line throwing maybe too much at you early on. Just back then, that's the way coaching was. Like you didn't want to, a young kid really played unless they were just something special. And I think that was just the mentality then, where now I feel like it's more open. The best player plays. And if that's a 14-year-old freshman who comes in, then that's who it is, or a 15-year-old sophomore or whatever. So I think that was it. But when you played your junior year, you played some defensive end. And I remember going into like kind of talks into your senior year. we just kind of felt like, yeah, you were really great ending, but teams wouldn't run your way. And at some points we were weaker in other areas. So, we felt like you could move, you were physical, but most importantly, you were very intelligent. So making the transition to understand things was really important. So as a football coach, you definitely always want to look at football intelligence, not just like straight A intelligence. You want to look at people who are smart. And then you want to say to yourself, what is their ability? Right. Because someone like you playing a strong side end is great, but they're either going to W or they're just going to run away from you. And if you're not good in other areas, that's a problem. Particularly that year, we weren't, I wouldn't say not good at linebacker, but we definitely weren't like veteran savvy. There was a lot of linebackers from the year before that had graduated. And we felt like there were some young players that were pretty good, but we felt like a kid like you and Jake Hart, for example, were kind of wasted down when you both were physicals, tough, really tough, and smart. And when you guys run around the field, and then it allows you to develop a younger line, and we were okay with that because we felt like we had such really balanced linebackers at that point that were physical. And you had guys like, Pags on top of that, and Dan Sullivan and Steve Kerrins. Like, you had some guys that were physical and could play really tough linebacker on top of you and Jake. So, if you can be weaker and inexperienced in one area, knowing that the next year you'll be very good in that next area, and you'll have guys who are sprinkled in and got to really play. And so, you kind of make those decisions based off of personnel year to year. At least that's my experience in doing it. Every coach does it differently. And then obviously your senior year was, we wanted to unleash you. And like I said, you played linebacker, and
that was gonna be my next question, because
yeah,
it was definitely a bigger jump. But I didn't mean to interject, but
yeah,
to lead into that, and I agree. I think that you look at it, and just me being on the other side of things, and also now further remove, I can understand the business decision behind, hey, what's the best position for this program? What puts us in the best position to succeed?
yeah,
And I agree. And I think sometimes you got to make some tough calls. And as much as you want to cater to the individual, you also want to make sure that you don't compromise the brand. You don't compromise the program. You don't compromise, what you're trying to do, whether it be the development of some of these younger guys, or really just making sure that you don't lose that edge presence, or you don't lose, hey, if someone's now that much more fatigued because you're going both ways, you're playing special teams, and now you go to offense and you let someone blitz right through the A gap because, you couldn't step because your legs weren't moving.
yeah.
So I get that through and through. But now, as we kind of fast forward to the 07 season, because now I'm lobbying to the Supreme Court at this point, because I definitely was like, I'm playing it. There's no one that's going to play over me. And I remember I told all the recruiters that I talked to that spring and the summer, this is what I'm doing. But it seemed as if that the lobbying had paid its way, but it went to the extreme though. And I say that in part because I started out playing outside.
I know where you're going with this. I know where you're going.
I had to go there. I had to tell the people. So, we started out telling them I was a linebacker in the offensive line, which I was. So, but at the same time, at some point during the year, I started out as an outside linebacker. Then I moved to inside linebacker. And then this was not my decision, people, but somehow they moved me to strong safety in this inverted cover 2. More or less a cover 6 type scheme with the safeties dropping down to the flats. But then it went the extra mile. And then it went to going out and playing corner. And then one team decided to stay 5 wide instead of going double wing T, and they left me out there at corner, which I did not mind. I did not mind it at all. But even on the offensive side, we would go into these jumbo sets, and we're a spread team, but now we're just going to the eye all of a sudden. And now I'm playing fullback. Now, to say, hey, we'll let you get a couple carries at tailback. And it was a different time, different era. And I was open to all, and for the young guys now, I wanted all the smoke. So for me, whatever I could get, I was going to take. But what was that like? Because now you're a coordinator. And now in this, environment where, we had some rough patches where we weren't winning ball games early in that season, but we ended up, turning things around against Arlington, lo and behold. But what was that like, especially because for me, like, that was mind-boggling, but rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, I think to answer your question, I think in a season, you always are trying to figure out your identity, right? But figuring out your identity, I think for us, coaching under a guy like Serge, as you did and played for him like I did, you kind of learn that that's not always the same concrete cement thing. It doesn't mean that you're just this and that's it. And I think when you have players, when you play certain teams, like keep in mind that league was like wing T, double tight, then spread. And then so like you didn't always see the same type of offense. So you being really good in one spot for us, we look sometimes at spread teams for the ability of, okay, like we can widen you out and have you jam the heck out of a guy on the line of scrimmage because we feel like we have enough depth inside that our linebackers are almost kind of wasted there in a way. Like we want to put some of our better players in positions. Now, leaving you out in 5 wide, I mean, that's just maybe not the best call as a as a newer coordinator and so on. But at that point, we ran through the league, and I think when you're starting to do that and you look at playing cover 6 corner, which again is like a strong safety coming up to the line, if we were facing teams that we felt were pulling guards and tackles to the outside or having wings and guards pull and really come at the corner, let them take on our biggest beast all game long, and they're going to find that they're going to have to be able to do other things against us. So some of it was strategy too, in the sense of you were smart and you could take it on. And so, yeah, maybe at the time it looks super bizarre, but there's a reason why we went on a run. We had a lot of talent and that's for sure, but there were some great coaches that came through during that 5 years that went on to coach collegiately at high levels. And I, 2 of them coached at Merrimack, one of them coached you, I believe.
Yeah.
So
I give him the shot.
yeah. So, we also were blessed with some really good coaches that I learned a lot from and really understood, like not to necessarily look at the game. I remember Coach DeCenzo came in the year that we won the Super Bowl and he had showed me, or a year after, and he had shown me like a no down lineman type defense that was like blitzing and crossing and it was a number system. And like I like listened to it, and then we had a game against Fenwick that they didn't run the ball. They went 5 wide a ton, or they had running back in the backfield, I guess, to keep you honest, but you knew they weren't going to run the ball. And so that defense came in the mind, and I reached out to him, and we ran that no down lineman the whole game. And the first half we got hurt, but the second half that quarterback got hit so many times, man, he just was getting rid of the ball way before he was supposed to. So, these are great coaches that you learn this type of stuff from, that, you become innovative. And again, kids maybe don't get it at the moment, but we're in the business of winning football games, as you and I know. So sometimes that's not playing a kid either, knowing that they might not be a great matchup in a system that you're seeing. So for you, it was just, you were a really smart kid and you won the league MVP as a middle linebacker. I mean, in today's era, it's quarterback or bust, right? And you won it in an era of, and there were some great offensive weapons on the team. Justin Serra was no joke. I mean, you had some great offensive linemen on the team. When Joe Granado was healthy, he might have been the best player in the league as far as a skill guy goes. So, there were some really good players on that team, but you were the leader and you were the most impactful on both sides of the ball. No one wanted to take you on when you pulled, and most certainly a middle linebacker, nobody wanted to come downhill against you. So, so I mean, all compliment, all I think that just shows your mind and high IQ of the game. I mean, I'm not just saying this because you're in front of me on the Zoom screen, but you might be one of the highest, if not the highest football IQ I've ever been around, period. You're like Ernie Adams. You were like literally my Ernie Adams for me, like having me look at things that I wasn't really looking at and being like, you're right. And then spending a little bit more time and investing that. And I think that that's what you learn in this game. That's what makes like guys like Belichick great when he's putting out Julian Edelman as a defensive back or Troy Brown before him. That's finding guys that can do things, and maybe it's a little unorthodox, but that's what makes the great coaches great. So
yeah, no, I agree. And again, looking back at it, and it's always like humbling but goosebumps types feel, because again, winning an MVP as pretty much a defensive player, but then also, showcasing versatility. But then I think what you said is just having the IQ to know, how do I put myself in the best position to help my team? And then how do I make sure the team as a whole is in the best position to win this play, on both sides of the ball, and then making sure we don't give the game up on special teams either. I think it was something I sometimes didn't always take, you know, for its full, gratitude of what I was able to do. But it's always humbling hearing it back. But I think it's one of the things I really pride for a lot of the younger guys coming in now. If there's a kid who understands the game, I don't mind if you run a 5.2 40. I'll put you on the field,
Yeah.
and I think one of the differences in comparing, Northeast football versus down south and, over on the West Coast is that, speed is definitely a factor. But I think what allows a lot of guys to transition and play at a high level, it's the same way the guys in the league are able to play in years 10, 12, 13, 15, is that your IQ and your mental side is what keeps you sharp, because the faster you can recognize what's happening and get to the spot, doesn't matter if the guy opposite you runs a 4.4. If you beat him to the
Yeah.
spot, that's it. You make the play.
That's it.
So
Exactly. And I was saying that to you earlier, that sometimes being able to coach something under 30 seconds or less means that kid's just going to play faster because he's smarter up here versus faster at his feet. You're absolutely right,
exactly,
dude. Totally.
exactly.
Totally. So let me ask, can I just ask you this? And this is something that, you know, I think all coaches should be listening to out here, but for you, you've kind of been in a unique position of coaching under three different head coaches, and obviously a coach that you played for, someone that you coached with, and then someone that you coach with as an assistant and moved over with, and coach at Arlington High School now with. So what's it like for you coaching under three different guys, and maybe some of the things you picked up along the way in your coaching career?
Yeah, it's actually it's interesting. That is very true that there's multiple people that I've had the opportunity to work with. I think the main thing goes back to some of the things that brought me into coaching in terms of familiarity. The good news is each one of the head coaches I've known beforehand, worked with beforehand in some capacity, and then understanding the values, the philosophy, what's the mission behind what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And I think there has to be an agreement on one main principle, because I think for me, when it comes to coaching the game of football or just football in general, it's based off principles. Because the one thing about the game is that it's geared towards preparing you for life and teaching you a lot of life lessons. Like for me, the major one was probably time management and discipline.
Right.
And starting that off in high school. But I think as we now navigate towards, the coaching side of it is, everyone has a scheme. Some say that, hey, I'm a 4-3 guy, I'm a 3-4 guy. Others say, yeah, I'm wing T through and through, or I like to be spread, shotgun base, 4 wide sets. But the question I always ask everyone is, do you just have a scheme that you just run this and this is what you do year in and year out? Or do you recognize who you have for players, recognize what their strengths and weaknesses are, highlight the strengths, hide those weaknesses so that they don't get exposed, and then create a scheme within a scheme that fits these guys? Because the things that I've seen that hasn't worked out well is when you're trying to run something and then you try to run something else and then you try to, do what that can only get you but so far. One of the things I really believe in is that coaching should win you a couple of games. Talent will win you another couple of games. If you get both of those things working together, that wins you 2 or 3 more games. If the kid has now built their IQ, expanded beyond their potentials, coaches are now able to execute and prepare a game plan at a high level. Now we're talking championship football, because now we're talking about those late games in the season where talent's matched up, coaching pedigrees matched up. People have similar game plans. Now it's about who's winning those 50-50 balls, who's reacting to that pulling guard and fitting up run, and who's realizing, hey, there's a bobbled snap, I need to go get it. So I think that aspect is where I like to make sure I'm on the same page with the head coach and with the staff as a whole, because I think one of the bigger issues that I see a lot of times is people want to bring in new things, and I've been guilty of this. So I'm not going to try to say that I'm the angel of the group here, but you want to bring in something new to help galvanize the troops, or hey, I think this would be very helpful, but you got to make sure it's speaking the same language of what the staff already speaks to the kids. Because I think one element that comes up a lot, this is all across the football, where a kid asks a question, but you ask the question to two different coaches. And for the kid, he hears two different answers. Which one does he follow? Which one does he trust? And this is how you can sometimes create a mutiny. So I always like to make sure scheme-wise, we're on the same page, language-wise, we're on the same page. And then from a system standpoint, once everything is essentially laid out, we know what we're doing, how we're going to do it, is that we're all saying the same things and the kids are saying the same things back because everything's built off of principle. So like I said about the offensive side of the ball for, the quarterbacks and even for the receivers, everyone's looking at the same thing when we're looking at a defense. The line's looking at, hey, is it even or odd? And then from there, where's the three technique? But then for, the back seven, for the skill guys and especially the quarterback, middle field open or close, corner, what's your leverage? Is there a conflict guy in the alley? So if everyone's on the same page, they know what we do based off of what they're doing. So that way there's no confusions, there's no questions. And if there is, every coach is saying the same thing.
Yeah, and I think that's always what I struggle with. And more as a head coach, truthfully, is as an assistant coach, I know how hard I worked, right? So sometimes when being a head coach and you're not seeing assistant coaches maybe put in the work or be like, well, I know this and I know that, there's nothing that burns you more, and because you have to be on the same page. If you're teaching linebackers where their drops start to where they end, to where the safeties begin and ends, there's always that area that's wide open. And if there's not great communication there, you get destroyed in that. Like that's something that when teams are hitting the ball between the linebackers and the safeties and you have no answer for it and your kids aren't working at it or don't communicate that because your coaches might not be on the same page, they could run that every single play and be successful. I mean, that's how it's taking candy from a baby. So I agree with you. Being coaches on the same page, assistant coaches. And again, I felt like that's why you and I vibed so early on when we coached, because it was like you hustled, I hustled, and we both knew it. Like we both knew it, that if there was something you sent me, I would look at it before the next day of practice and vice versa. Or we were always texting or always on the phone. My wife used to always be like, who are you on the phone with, Deja? I'm like, yeah, because we had the same exact passion for it, but we also really looked at the game in a lot of different ways. We didn't just look at it, like you said, this is who I am and this is what we run. It doesn't matter what my personnel is. And for some coaches, they go a whole season doing that. And I felt like you and I, sometimes it was week to week, we'd change where we put the safety or who was playing that position or putting a different guy in a different spot. And that relates back to when you played. So I think that just shows like the growth of the game and understanding that, a lot of coaches have a hard time adjusting. And if you're someone who can adjust multiple times in a game by just doing, you don't have to, become a transformer and turn into something completely different, but you just tweak something or the way you block something or what gap you decide to attack, like on the offensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball, what coverage you might be playing, the type of pressure you might be sending, your alignment down on the line. Are you shifting the line from, a 3-4 that's head up versus now playing a 1-3 and having that end stand up? Like, so there's so many different things, again, not to nerd out on it, but I agree with you, man. I think it's just about really kind of being on the same pages and making sure that the staff is correct for you. If you're somebody who's putting in the work and that's your expectation, and maybe people aren't exceeding what you want, like that might not be the right place for you either. And so you coached under, I'll say, two great coaches in Serge and Matt. I won't say that I was too great, but you've learned from some awesome guys.
I put you up there, man. Gotta put you up there. One thing I will say, and again, I want people to understand as well, is that your willingness to go above and beyond to help a kid in need, but then also to give them an opportunity on and off the field to be successful. So I say this, and this will be a one segue story, but this will be something that's really helpful for a lot of head coaches and assistant coaches, is that, for a lot of kids, they may not have a lot, in terms of their home environment versus resources in the building versus, even transportation. But I think the willingness to make sure that every kid is accounted for, both on and off the field, is really important, because again, you want to build that relationship where he trusts you. Yeah. And he can confide in you. And I think one of the things that, you would really go out of your way with is, reaching out just to make sure that they're doing okay. And this is before we really took a big leap in terms of mental health, as a global community. But I would say that the other part is that, for a lot of these kids, is like making sure that we reached out to, the Touchdown Club and the football moms to make sure we had resources available, that we had, even some extra snacks in the building. So that way, kids can have something to eat and stuff like that, which people don't really look into.
Right.
But those are things that go a long way, especially for kids who may not have that much at home. But then academically, it's like, hey, let's focus on, getting that stuff taken care of. Because one, if you don't, you may not be eligible. But then number two is, what are you going to do after football? Because we got to make sure we have a plan for that. What are you going to do when you want to go to college? Or if we want to segue, say, into, the workforce, let's have a plan. And I think those are elements that stand apart in willingness to be engaged with families. So that way parents felt like they were involved, alumni felt like they were involved, but then the student body and the administration felt as if, there was full transparency to what's going on. And I think that's one of the harder things to do, especially in the game of football as a coach, mainly as a head coach, because you're running an organization. It's like you have employees, and then from there you have your customers, but you also have the general public that you have to appeal to. You have,
and then you have your Yelp reviewers who criticize you all the time, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And don't forget the rest of social media. They're out there. So I think being able to balance all of that and being able to also take care of business, I think it goes a long way. So again, I have to make sure I get you the shout outs for that one.
Well, I appreciate that. That means a lot. And I think that something that, is important in my teaching career as well as coaching. I think that, at the end of the day, any person wants to feel self-worth, right? They want to feel that people care about them and people are invested in them and people want what's best for them. And I think as head coaches, that's our role and responsibility. It's our role to go out there and be that above and beyond for them. You take on the job and it's not most certainly for the money. So then you figure out, what's your passion? Why do I want to do this? Why do I want to be here? And that's even for young coaches out there when you first start out. Know why you're there, right? If you're there just to kind of ride the wave and say you're a football coach, great, awesome. But don't be surprised when you don't get better at doing it, right? But it's important that I knew from day one when I wanted to be there, what I wanted to do. I wanted to be different. I wanted to be special. I wanted to be better. And I think football has always brought that balance to my life and making sure that I always had time management and self-discipline, but also understanding that everybody comes from different situations and has different things going on, and that you have to be understanding of that, because your life is not the way that somebody else is. If you can't understand that, some kids, even my last year head coach, and you had kids taking Paul taking the train from Brockton, and coming to play football at AC every day. That's why you get up to coach. That's why you want to be that influence. That's why you want to go above and beyond, because no kid, and I don't care, in high school that year, no kid was doing that. No kid was doing what he was doing. Maybe there's similar stuff and kids were traveling, but not like that. And pulling the academic schedule that he had and the grades that he had and the performance he played at and the leadership he had. Yeah. And
for
that's
most people, that's the only things you see on Netflix watching Last Chance U of kids trying to travel 3-4 hours. But that's what we're talking about. At least traveling, minimum 1 to 2. And kudos to him. He's got his money to go over to UNH with New Haven Chargers. I don't like the blue turf. I lost a few games against those guys, but kudos to him though.
It's got to be a seller. That's got to be a seller, right? Like blue turf, it's just different.
Oh,
kids come in and see it, they're like, yes, I want to play here. Has to be.
I'm not gonna lie. There was a very slight chance that I almost could have went there, but then I almost even considered hey, if I'm gonna go anywhere, if I'm gonna transfer, I would love to play on the blue turf. But I will say it's a great school, it's a great program. I remember back when I played, they got a couple of transfers and they just took the league over. I know there was one kid from the city of Somerville that I knew fairly well who ended up going there. I remember when I played him in 2010 when we won the league. 2009 season, technically 2010. And we're in the 50-yard line, we're shaking hands. I'm like, oh, what's going on? Say, hey, sorry we had to do it to you. And then the following year, I think they put 40 on us, maybe 50. I want to hope it's not, but I was gonna say at least 40. He's like, sorry we had to do it to you. I'm like, respect it. I respect it. But actually, I had a question as we kind of tie into this, in some of these different things. One thing in terms of the blast from the past,
okay.
just there was such a great era from '06 to, 2010, 2011, and really just a dominant run. And I think every team, has their runs, and you're allowed to really be at the forefront of a lot of it, from the humble beginnings of it to then, essentially where you had that Super Bowl and then even, competing at a high level thereafter. But honestly, I'm recalling, that '08 season. And to start out, things weren't looking all that hot. And people were asking me, it's like, hey, I thought you said AC was all that. They're just losing. I'm like, give them time, give them time. But then I was also panicking at the same time. What was the difference? Because now, you're in the seat as a coordinator, and me being a coordinator, I'm willing to make, rash decisions when necessary. But I think one of the hardest things to do, and I learned this from the military, being in the VA system, is you got to be able to change and adapt. If something's not working, you need to recognize it, identify, do the fastest root cause analysis you possibly can. You may not even get an answer, but then you have to change and you have to adapt. What was that sequence that led to things, essentially turning around? Because you guys played the same team in the playoffs that we played the year before, that I still have yet to watch that tape of Swampscott, and I don't think I ever can. But what was the difference for you guys?
I mean, one, I think obviously for me, just developing as a coach, like again, I'm pretty new on to that. And when you're a school that's known to score 50 points and still lose, and that was kind of a mentality then, and that's no insult to anybody before me, but that was kind of always it. Alumni all the way to players, was AC could score, but they could never stop anybody. And so that was pretty personal to me. So I think when you're trying to figure out that process and you're in the middle of that run, you're in the middle of that dominant run, and you're still in a dominant run, still letting up a lot of points, but you're just scoring more, And so for me, it was really like trying to fix this problem long term. And it wasn't necessarily trying to just figure it out. It was something that we moved you around a lot, right? That year we had a freshman linebacker who came in that did the same thing. He played corner for us, he played outside backer for us, and then eventually started middle linebacker. And that was really the switch. I think a coordinator gets one chance to a head coach. You get one time to go to a head coach and really fight and fight hard for a kid or a change or something to be a little different with an idea. And I kind of waited. We played a tough non-league schedule. Don't get me wrong. We played, I don't think the Patriots were off that week, or else we might have played them. I mean, that's the type of schedule that Serge would book, and it as a player. And that in that mentality toughened our team up when it came to league play. But I fought hard to start a kid at middle linebacker, Zach Bates, and Zach came in kind of with the hype, and he was very good. And wherever we put him on the field, he just always made a play. On film, he was just always making a play. Or if someone missed a tackle, he came across the field and somehow made a play, and he wasn't even on the play side. He just had an instinct for the football. And, we felt like at the time we had a very good linebacker in Steve Pagliacca, but we didn't really have someone true beside him that could move, and, teams could block him and teams could get to him. And having Zach there just instantly changed our defense. It just made us dominant. We went on a league run of just like not really letting up points. If we did, they were very minimal. And we just got better because we started trusting, or I started trusting my instincts with certain kids. And then midway through the season, start giving kids different reps at different positions that maybe weren't getting it, just because I'm like, we got to find the role. This is how we're going to attack this team. And when it came to Swampscott, truthfully, it was a film that I watched. Steve Dembowski, I think he coaches at Milton now, but at the time he was the head coach there at Swampscott. He's one of the best high school football coaches in the state. I mean, guy scores a zillion points. His offenses are always really good. He has a huge football IQ. He runs incredible flag football, tournaments across the state. Great guy. I mean, going against someone like that and playing against somebody, I saw that offense a lot. I had a feeling we were going to play them if we won the league, and we knew that they were just as good from the year before. And it was a film that I watched, and they played Danvers, and Danvers was one of the only teams that played man-to-man against them. And I noticed in the first half, they struggled a lot offensively. The quarterback he was very quick, and he could run everywhere, and he could hit the open spots. He read zones very well, but a little bit under pressure, he wasn't quite an accurate thrower, and he quite couldn't pin the ball in there because he didn't have a rocking arm either. And that's no insult. So he was one of the best quarterbacks in the state, but it was something I picked up on. And then in the second half, he just got outside the pocket and made his magic happen. So that was the film. And Danvers now is a very, very good football program, but then I think they were like a 3 or 4 win team that year. And that was the film that did it for me. That was the film that convinced me when we went against them. And we played a lot of man against them the year before, but we sent the house and we sent a lot of pressure from a lot of different ways. And we just said, contain this kid into the pocket. And you watch that film against him. Zach Bates probably had 13 tackles. He blew up like 4 jailbreaks. He was the best player on the field that game. And to me, that was the difference. He was the difference maker of that decision making, along with moving some other kids here and there or giving kids more reps. But it was really trusting for the first time that a freshman could go in there and handle the responsibility and play with 17, 18-year-old kids that have been lifting and working out and just bigger and, more developed than they were. And he did not shy away from it. So that's my answer to you. I think he was the biggest difference maker for that following year playing that team. That and their running back, Elia 11, I think was like out. He wasn't playing, and that helped because he was very good. But that was it. It was really having 2 inside backers and a nose tackle that really just owned the middle of the field, and they had a lot of trouble against us that day.
No, I agree, and I remember watching that one of the highlights and just seeing Charlie Bates doing a hurdle.
His brother, yeah.
and it's just like it's unreal. But I think the main thing for me, just again being a part of getting close, it's like I'm not gonna put the equivalent of, but you're looking at those teams that are knocking on the door, because we're talking about a win away from being at Gillette Stadium back-to-back years, and you fall short, but then on the third try you get a rematch essentially, and you're able to take care of business. And then I kid you not, because I couldn't get myself to watch the playoff game, and I already knew we'd take care of business on Thanksgiving Day, so I knew what the end result was going to be. But we're just wrapping up for us in terms of our season, and then I had my roommate reach out. It's like, hey, you watching Super Bowl right now? And literally, I took the entire wing, had everyone centered around the room. It's like, come witness history being made right now at 10 a.m. Yeah. Because let me show you something. And then the one play that stands out that had the entire football team going crazy was Chris Elbag's catch, one-hand grab over the middle of the field. And it's still an SC top 10 play in my book to this day. And if you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. Yeah. It's a one-hand grab, for a first time. This is like a 15-yard dig route that he literally, the throw's a little behind, but still, I mean, before Odell Beckham was out here, making highlights on Sunday night, this one's one heck of a play.
I mean, it was a bullet across the middle of the field too. And he windmill arm caught it, one hand, tucked it, brought it back up all in one. I've never seen a catch like that. I mean, Odell Beckham's catches, I saw that live watching it on TV, and I was like, oh my God. Yeah. I'd be interested to put those two catches next to each other. And I know that sounds wild because the other game is played at such a high speed and just way better athletes. But this catch, not many NFL guys are making that catch. I don't care who it is.
The where you are on the field, but also the moment of the game. We're talking about Super Bowl in Gillette. That's big time football right there.
And he wasn't a number, he was probably our 5th receiver, and that was a huge catch. Humongous. Scott Zolak was going bananas when he caught it.
That was the momentum swing, I think, that ultimately turned the game over. And that was it. It was because the game is really built off of momentum. You can have runs just like in basketball, but if you have this huge moment in a game, that's going to now erupt a stadium. That's going to really just recharge your entire bench. But then that just demoralizes an opposing team. Because when you see something like that, it's like, how can we stop that? If you got the right guys, they'll be able to, quiet the storm. But that was such a key moment. And I still ask Serge, and I'll tell you the same thing. I'm expecting my ring in the mail. I was told that I had one as an honorary member of the team. So whenever you send it out, it's perfectly fine, even though it's almost about 15 years awaited. But we'll see. I'm still holding out hope.
Yeah, I tell you, man, I still have my ring, and every so often it comes out and it's in pristine shape. And yeah, it's something I was proud of. I worked hard for that. I was, like I said, I wanted to change that defense, and I felt like that year, and the year after that, we didn't go to the Super Bowl, but that defense was insane too. So, we improved in those areas, and that made me very happy as a young coach of, I put that work in, and that's my advice to young coaches, as I'm sure it is to you, like put that grind and hard work in, listen, absorb, be a sponge, ask questions. Don't just think you know everything. And if you don't know something, who cares? Who cares if you don't know it? That's why you're asking the question, to learn it and then implement it, right? And being able to teach it. I think that would be my biggest advice to young coaches out there, is don't just think you know everything right from jump, because no matter how much football knowledge you have, jumping into the coaching game, there's always some sort of education that you're going to get. And just because you understand something at a rate or at a speed and can take it in, doesn't mean that all the kids that you're coaching, whether it's positionally or an offense or a defense, depending on what you're coaching, it doesn't mean that they're getting it at that speed either, and understanding that. It's like a classroom. Some kids understand watching a video, some kids understand reading a book, some kids understand with the teacher speaking out loud. Like that's learning in general, So yeah, absolutely, man. My question to you, and I want to be able to have you give out, before we jump into our 2-minute drill, I want to have you give a little love to Merrimack. Obviously you recruited to play there. You played very well. You had a lot of success there. Recently they're really kind of transforming themselves into a Division I program powerhouse, really trying to make those next steps. We have AC coaches that have coached there or currently coach there. I mean, talk about the state of Merrimack football, the pride that you have with them, and the things that are going on.
Yeah, no, I'll say that the MAC is definitely one of those monumental game changer. That 4-year run definitely helped to cement who I am now. And at that time, it's interesting. A quick segue back to that '07 playoff game. John Perry, who was coaching with UNH at the time, was there watching the game. Those guys from both sides that he was looking at, and he tried coming to me after the game, and I was also upset. And I tell us all kids, be a man, own up to it. If you lost, take it on the chin, but hey, be respectful, especially for people that are, there for your best interest, or just want to, help, console you in a loss, or at least, tell you good game, things like that. Because you don't want to burn a bridge that you had no idea was someone was building for you, and now you ruin your opportunity of getting off the island. So and I say that in terms of getting to the dream school you want, scholarships, stuff like that. But and my best interest, and actually ended up happening, was that he actually came back around the following day into the school. So thankfully I didn't burn this bridge.
But burn it down.
Yeah, so we were talking, he's like, yeah, we'll be in touch. And for 2 weeks I didn't hear from him. I'm like, all right, I thought we had a great rapport, at least we made up for the bad initial first impression. But he understood how much I was passionate about the game and how much that I really hated having that loss. But at the same time, as those 2 weeks go by, I see a Merrimack number call, and I've had calls from them in the past, but now, like, the voicemail comes through, and it's like, hey, it's John Perry, and as I quickly pick up the phone, I was like, oh, hey, Coach Perry, and he's like, I got good news and bad news. I'm like, bad news is I'm no longer at UNH. Good news is I'm over at Merrimack College, and I want to bring you in as a part of my, introductory class. And, it's just you and a couple of, marquee names that I want to bring from the Division I ranks here to Division II, with plans of going Division I. So that was one of the things that really sold me, was that, him having that D1 pedigree at a pretty prestigious school in UNH in terms of, 1AA ball. But at the same time, he had the mindset of, we're here to win championships. I'm bringing in the same recruits that, I would have been recruiting up there. But then at the same time, he had what I like to call that TB12 sense of urgency to him. So it was 0 to 100. And he's a former, Division I All-American. So, he knows how to play the game at a high level. And then, you probably saw some of my energy in my coaching career, which is different from how I played back in high school. And part of that's because he would bring that out of me, and the main thing is that once you step between those lines, it's time to go to work. But, this is the newest version of, Gladiator. And, in on the flip side, it's more controlled and it's more systematic. So it's close combat. So it's almost similar to that of, the military in some respects as well. So when you take all those things into account, he instilled a vision of, how to play the game and how to play the game at a high level, but his expectations were high and his standards were high. But if you're willing to meet those standards, you'd play and play very well, and that's why, again, going back to the accept the challenge mantra, but then for the Mac, it was like, hey, are you Mac tough? Are you built Mac tough? Are you willing to put on the armor? Are you willing to bear the shield? And either you're with it or you're on it. That was one of his lines. And he would always get us fired up. And one of the things he was like, hey, we're the Wild Bunch. And that's saying, as soon as we walk in between those lines, like, they're not knowing what's going to happen. Someone locked the gate, and let's go have some fun. And that stuff used to always get me juiced up. And even to this day, with a lot of my guys from college, we'll still use those same lines of MC Wild Bunch, so on and so forth. But it helped me pioneer into a lot of things I do now. But then also, and I'll give the shout out to Dr. Chris Hopi, who's the current president. Like, he came in mid tenure there, because I was also working in the admissions department, and he had a plan to revolutionize the school. I mean, from where it was to where I was there, it had already come a long way, but he had a completely new set vision to take it to the newer world order of technology, social media, pioneering innovation, using tech, but then having still civic engagement, creating the atmosphere of having a personal connection between students, alumni, professors, faculty, and staff. And it's one of those things that I think was really invigorating, because I haven't seen something like that before, especially when you see a lot of entrepreneurship where now people are creating this groundbreaking new content, whether it be through social media or new companies. This was that same element as social media was finally, really taking full steam with Facebooks, Twitters, and things like that. So that place transformed, and being a part of it, seeing it, I remember I still have it in one of my closets here somewhere. It's like when they first were putting out these view books to showcase the campus and really growing it, and being a part of that whole thing and being on the cover of one of them for a little short period of time. But it really emphasized, hey, we want to grow, we want to expand, we want to be more engaged. And now it's full throttle, Division I across the board, FCS level, but having, expanding arts and science and innovating engineering projects, the business school, having marketing, and a lot of other things.
You should do tours for them. I mean, you sound like you could walk any family through there right now and tell them what's up.
You know what? I probably could. I just need a little update, because interestingly enough, because like I said, I used to be a admissions ambassador. I actually gave tours back my junior, senior year. So not surprised
actually after hearing that.
Yeah, like I said, I don't like to, toot my own horn or anything, but yeah, I used to be pretty involved in I used to see, like, I remember, because again, I also worked in IT, not to shoot my own horn, but, having to sit in, to staff some of the boardrooms, make sure the tech was, operational, stuff like that, but listening to their conversations of what the plan was, what the vision was 5, 10, 15 years down the line. But then, like, same thing with him, the sense of urgency of, we want to provide a product to the students that is top-notch, creme de la creme, but then understanding that, hey, we have to do this a certain way to be successful, because you'll see a lot of these schools that are in that smaller size that are closing because of lack of enrollment or lack of endowments and funding. And he's been able to push through that, even still now in the middle of COVID, and really, handling that pretty well, and overall keeping the enrollments up. And I think it's one of those things where people always ask me, hey, what would you recommend for schools, especially as kids are, getting ready to graduate? And I don't like to say, oh, you should go here or there. I like to always ask, what do you envision yourself doing? Do you want to be in a big school, small school, so on and so forth? But a lot of times, because a lot of people are looking for something that's not too big, but they don't want to be too small. They want to be somewhere where, their professors know their name, where they can also be engaged in things in the community. Yeah. I'm like,
it's important to me. I mean, that was very important to me always being in a place that people knew who I was, because I always wanted to feel like I was someone there and not just another number. That's just personal preference, but some people, they enjoy the big atmosphere, the big campus, getting to know a lot of different people, the diversity of it. It's also a big learning experience going to a bigger school and kind of experiencing all that, because again, like we talk about with football, that stuff is things that you bring into life or experience in life yourself, no matter what. So we're going to jump into our last segment here, is our 2-minute drill. I don't know if you've seen it before, but we do rapid fire questions, and we'll fire away. We're pretty lenient.
Now, here's a quick question though. I've seen a couple of these, so I know how this goes, but I think we've done things a little bit differently, and I think it's a nice little feedback between me and you.
It has been a different episode, I will say. This is a little different.
Yeah, we go back a ways. Technically, if we chart out the numbers, we're talking about 2005. So this is something that's almost 20 years.
Yeah.
How about we switch up the 2-minute drill, where I'm not a no huddle guy, so we're not going to go rapid fire, every 10 seconds, but I do like to dial it up. We like to mix it up a little bit of spread, a little bit of double wing. You never know what to get.
Listen, absolutely. You could throw 5 to 7 questions at me. That's fair. That's very fair. And I'm really excited about this.
All right, cool. So you're saying, as an AC alum, you're willing to accept the challenge?
I am willing to accept the challenge. I'm ready to be on the other side of the 2-minute drill.
All right. Well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen,
I like this.
Let's take it down memory lane, but also just get a feel, in terms of preferences. First one, 4-3 or 3-4. In terms of defense, what are you running?
I mean, I think it depends who you play, but a 3-4 is something I'm definitely more comfortable with. I think it brings a lot more to the table in today's game, where it's a lot more spread 2x2 or trips or even empty sets or motioning to different things. Having an extra stand-up guy that's athletic on the field, I find it more valuable personally. I mean, if you're in a league that's just, tight ends and really everything's kind of, tight together, then, obviously a 4-3 I think is better, but 3-4, I prefer the 3-4 personally.
Yeah, I'm with the 3-4. Just you can play with more tweeners.
Yeah.
And unless you got like the legit 6'2", 6'3" guys, or the 6'6" edge basketball players that can box everything in, I just like 3-4. Now, in terms of coverage, zone or man?
Man all day. If it was up to me, it's 3-4. Double slant and goes, all goes, cover 0. Like, we're coming at you. If you're a high school quarterback and you're good enough to throw the ball in under pressure, and we try to take the middle of the field away from you, and you have to throw it between the sideline and the defender, and you can do it consistently, then good for you. But I'm going to take my chances on sending pressure and playing man all day, every day.
Case study, high school ball, but more importantly, college and NFL, some of the best defenses of all time can do those two things: play man, send heat.
That's it.
The best way to play defense.
Yeah.
Love it. Now, all right, let's get into a little bit of situation here.
Okay.
So it's 1st and 10, ball got pinned minus 10-yard line. The offense is backed up quite a bit.
Yeah.
You're coming out. What are you doing? Are you going after him with the blitz 0? Or are you going to play more of your, 3-4, inverted cover 6? You got me rolled down to the strong side, so you're going to force them to go one way. What are you doing here? What's your call?
I think it depends who your identity is. Like, there are some years on defense that we were man to man, and I felt like our 4 across the board were just better than their 4 across the board the other way. So as far as pass coverage, when I was never concerned about that, but to me, when you got a team, like you mentioned momentum earlier, when you can pin a team and really go after them and have the ability to, if you're playing to who you are, I think you have to be that all the time. So to me, I'd be sending heat, maybe not just, to the strong side or whatever we kind of saw on film or what we have on scout, as far as like plays off of like, inside their own 20, what they consistently do or whatever. And we used to chart that a lot, you and I. But I would say man to man for sure. I go right after them.
Love it. Next one's 2-part.
Okay.
So staying in the situational ball game, you're up 3.
Oh boy. Okay.
You're on the plus 40.
Yeah.
It's 4th and 3. You've got 1 timeout.
So I'm on their side. I'm on their side.
Yep. 4th and 3. Do you punt or do you go for it? And I'll also add, just so you understand the climate of this game in the moment. There's 2 minutes and 42 seconds left with this one timeout. The opposing team has no timeouts. What do you do?
Oh man. I mean, you have a chance to end it, right? For me, I'm a defensive guy, so I always want to have the opportunity to end the game on defense. And we've won plenty of games of doing that. So, as a head coach, I would put ourselves in a position to really pin them with no timeouts and force them to make plays, not give them the field and momentum at the same time. Because if you don't make that, they get momentum and they have basically midfield, so
they steal all the momentum back.
So I think playing defense, being a defensive guy, I was also always the punt coach. And we did a lot of different ways of punting and spread punt and rugby punting and really forced teams never to really come at us because we could hit them when we spread all the way across the field. So teams were very reluctant to come at us. So I think, I would punt the ball and take my chances playing defense for sure.
Okay. Very nice. Very nice. Now, because I'm controlling this narrative a little bit, they drive down the field.
Okay.
They got it to the 27-yard line right hash. This is a lefty kicker.
Okay.
You still have your one timeout. You didn't burn it yet.
Okay.
You're lining up for the field goal to tie the game. Do you ice them or do you let them kick?
Well, listen, I will tell this story, and you know exactly where I'm going with this.
I know. That's why I have to bring it up.
We're playing Shawsheen Tech, my first year as head coach, and right before the kid kicks the ball, I blow the timeout or in sequence. They didn't blow the whistle. The kid went through the kick and missed it by a mile and a half. They blew the whistle, said I called the timeout, and I did, and a little late, but whatever. And the kid went in and nailed it, and they won the game. So icing the kicker, I don't regret doing it. I think most head coaches would have done it. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, right? And looking back on it now in the moment, I definitely beat myself up about it. But you see it everywhere. I mean, a high school kid, that type of pressure to win the game at away, kicking from our side of the field, it was on our hash. I regret obviously what happened. We ended up losing the game, but I don't regret making the decision. I think most head coaches probably would take the opportunity to freeze and to talk to their guys a little bit to make sure that, we're in a right position to try to block it, put some taller guys inside. And I don't regret it. I mean, I regret it obviously, but I would have done it again,
I think, you trust your guns, and a lot of the numbers and the studies and will tell you it's 6 of one, half a dozen the other. It's semantics arguing. Do you blow it right away? Do you do it? Wait till you get to sequence. Wait till they're in phase for the snap. I think at the end of the day, you win some, you lose some. Yeah. But it's always good to understand, coaching philosophy, especially for head coaches, is that what do you do in those situations, right? Like in those pressure moments, playing game situation, what's your go-to? Or is it sometimes a feel where it's like, it's not necessarily this or that. It's the momentum, of the game. So I think it's good insight. Now, so we'll segue.
Give me like two more. We'll fire the two best at me. I feel like you get like a notebook and a half there.
well, I've got a couple of real good ones. If I have to go to two, oh man. All right. One I have to do 2-minute drill, because now we're in this NFL overtime where you get the ball.
Okay.
Who's your quarterback from the AC era? You've got 3 options. You got Matthew Oliveira from class of 2006.
Oh my God, you're gonna get me murdered.
You got Corey Spencer from class of 2009, and you've got Mr. Paul Hammond, class of 21.
I mean, there's 3 really good quarterbacks. To me, it's a simple answer with a simple explanation. Corey won a Super Bowl. The other 2 didn't. So Corey played in that biggest moment. So I guess he gets the nod a little bit over those 2 guys, but that's not taking anything. Matthew Oliveira has AC records left and right for touchdown passes, yards in the season.
He did have a couple game-winning drives too.
And he did. And I'll tell you, he probably quarterbacked the greatest offense that I've ever seen come through Arlington Catholic. So that's no knock on him whatsoever, because if you ask me this question in a different way or a different type of quarterback in a situation, the answer might be different a lot. In this situation, to me, it's the guy who has the ring. because, you know, he let us back in some games. Arlington game-winning drive. Austin Prep brought us down for a game-winning drive. You know, and Swampskip played, you know, played really well when he had to play really well, made big throws. We had to make big throws. And yeah, it's the guy with the ring. And Paul, obviously I spoke about him early and how I feel about him as a quarterback and his development as a person as well. But I'll play it safe here. I'm giving it to the guy who has the ring, plain and simple.
Fair. No worries. He did his groundwork in my senior year in 2007, and he got the job done in 2008. So I give you kudos.
Yeah.
All right, so I've got one left, right? Just one left. We got 10 seconds.
Okay, here we go. Yep.
This is a question that has been asked to me, and I had to ask it here.
Okay.
Because we're talking about, you know, a dynasty one that had its run, but even lately there's been some pretty talented teams.
I know it.
So the real question here is greatest team AC history in your opinion, because now we're talking about your era as a player, we're talking about my era as a player, we're talking about your era as a coach. There's some talented rosters here. I know there's a lot of discussion back at the 10-year anniversary of the 08 team. I will personally automatically bias this conversation in saying that the 06-07 team is the equivalent of the Miamis of the 2000-2001 era. You had some good teams thereafter that, you know, came close, but, you know, questionable PI calls that cost them a second title. But in your opinion, and we can say more so from a talent standpoint, but I look at it as just best overall, talent included, best AC team of all time.
You know, that's a loaded question to answer in 10 seconds.
You gave me one left. I have to give you the last one.
The most talented team with the most talent I've ever seen come through was the 06 team. I think that offense is the best offense that have ever come through that school's history, and it will never be matched again. I mean, that they had 100% red zone efficiency. So that's unheard of. Find me a high school in Massachusetts that's done that. Ever. Like maybe there are some, but you know, it's not very common. So that's the quick answer. Obviously, you know, I know Serge had a super.
Just put it out
there. That's the quick answer. That's what I'll say. That's the quick answer. The most talented team was 06 for sure. But I got to give the nod to the teams that win the Super Bowl, because at the end of the day, they won. They won, both of them. I mean, I'm shooting out to the 93 team too. I think they deserve the love just to hear that. But if you're asking me the most talented team, if that 06 team played in 08, yeah, they probably would have won a Super Bowl then too. So, or they would have won a Super Bowl that year as well. So yeah, absolutely. I would say 06 most talented team.
All right. I like it. I would say my answer to the 06 team against any of the others is that if you had to line them up,
you couldn't match them.
Yeah, it's just even if you only played half a game, play one quarter, play overtime rules. I think 06 against anybody, even the Super Bowl teams, and those are some pretty good teams. But yeah, that team, my goodness, between the college athletes, Division 1 through 3, just all scholastics. And I mean through the years.
Jonathan was the most explosive high school football player I have ever seen, and has not even seen since.
All right, now a quick shout out, because I'm just going to throw the shameless plug in. Like I said, giving them their flowers. Would you agree he is by far the greatest Arlington Catholic Cougar of all time?
I mean, yeah, like I would back that till
got to put that out there
till the end. I mean, any you know, and I'm sure Serge could throw a few names out there of people that he has coached over the years that, you know, obviously Serge is a coach of a different level and understands the game from a lot of different facets. And like he always, what people say, like he's forgotten more football than I know, you know? And so, but to me, Jonathan was, and my brother played on that Super Bowl team. So I saw that team as a young kid, obviously not looking at the game that I look like it now, you know, but there was no player on the field that just did what he did. I mean, he could catch the ball, he could run the ball, he could throw the ball. Teams would double team him, triple team him. I mean, we could put him in the backfield and he could score a touchdown. Like it was just,
it didn't matter.
Didn't want to kick to him. You know, he was running when he played defense. Devoured people, like devoured them. Like you were terrified to see if the kid was going to get up, because he just played at such a different speed and a different level and intensity. And hands down, without a doubt.
No, I definitely agree. He's someone that I always looked up to, and I think why he relished the role of playing multiple positions. And again, shameless plug, but I'll give that man his roses, because of what he did in 06. maybe want to replicate that as best I could in '07. Because I remember we had a it was a short conversation. And at that point, he was a very funny guy, but man, a few words when it came down to business. And it's like, I had the mantle, I'm passing the torch to you. Don't put this down. Don't drop it. You got to, pave the way. And one of the things that we both agreed on is that always leave this place better than you found it. So being able to then going back to how playing, linebacker, then safety, then corner, and then playing, tackle, playing fullback, running back, whatever it was, I relished that role because of him. And then as I then passed the torch down to the next guys, one of the guys I spoke to specifically, because we had a plethora of workouts, that off season, especially, in the winter months where I was trying to train for college. I remember I had Corey Spencer out in the freezing cold in January and February, literally throwing routes, throwing rollouts, driving dig routes, and me seeing if I can just, rob it. But then him focus on the craft and him getting those younger guys like the L-Bags and some of those other, younger players up to speed. And I told them the same thing. You've seen this firsthand, how it didn't work out well. Now it's your team. It's your time to take the mantle and get the job done. And that's why I feel great about what the '08 team did. But at the same time, it was great to see that culmination from that time frame, and ultimately what was that AC dynasty, for that.
It was a build-up, from the ground. So it's nice. It's like that alumni that just supports and backs, man. But I get to say I survived the 2-minute drill. So that was a different style 2-minute drill. I actually feel like I did okay being on my toes there. But listen, I want to thank you for coming on as someone who has a lot of respect for you. And when Matt, threw your name out there and wrote the letter of rec that he wrote for you, I mean, obviously I didn't need to read it to know it, but obviously, he feels pretty special about you. So, I want to thank you for taking the time and coming on here. Definitely talking, longest episode I've had in a long time. So it was really good being able to talk everything with you, from playing days to coaching days and being able to really catch up. You've always been a good friend to me and I truly appreciate it. So thank you for coming on today and closing out our assistant coaches month.
Yeah, no, appreciate it, man. Much love. And again, me and you, we go way back. So this is great. Sorry, it was a little long-winded. Some people say I talked.
No, it was great. To me, a great conversation is a great conversation. So it's not measured by time. So absolutely, man. This is great.
Nice. Love it.
Yeah. So until next time, Anthony Petrellis, Nick Desjardins, Arlington High School football. See ya.